Minister. We're all looking for your reaction on the tariffs.
Is the new U.S. tariff a negotiating tactic in CUSMA negotiations?
Well, first off, I'll note, and he can speak for himself, Minister LeBlanc had very constructive discussions with his counterpart, Ambassador Greer, yesterday in Washington, along with our chief negotiator, Janet Charette. Secondly, with respect to these 301 tariffs, this is not a surprise. It's something that the U.S. has been planning for a few months. I think very importantly is that two things. One is that the tariffs are consulted for 30 days or 30-plus days. Secondly, explicitly in the decision, Canada, the carve-out for CUSMA is referenced and maintained. So that puts us in a position where, again, we would still have the best trade deal of any of the U.S. trade counterparts. I want to say as well that the issue, the motivation of the U.S. action, the 301 tariffs against, or proposed tariffs against a variety of countries, is something that we share. Canada has a very strong legislative regime against forced labor in supply chains. We don't want any element of forced labor coming in goods and services, and we want to use our influence to eliminate this practice of forced labor and child labor. We have been preparing ways to reinforce the regime that we have. We made some changes earlier this year on things that candidly were not as effective, so there's ways we can change things legislatively. We'll be proposing that to the House in the coming weeks before the House rises, is our intention, and then taking steps to move forward on that. So, you know, when you boil down the action, we support the overall objective, the U.S. action, I should say, and I would note that, in effect, how it's drafted for the vast majority of Canadian trade, it will not have an impact. At the same time, since we support the overall objective, we have the objective and we're working towards making it more effective. En français, si je peux. Alors, ce n'était pas une surprise, cette action américaine hier soir. C'est important de reconnaître que la plus grande partie des exportations canadiennes seront exclues de cette action. C'est plus de 85% de nos exportations. C'est le même cas qu'avant, en effet. Mais l'objectif des Américaines, nous partageons cet objectif, l'élimination du travail forcé, du travail des enfants dans notre chaîne d'approvisionnement. Nous avons une règle importante, mais une carte des lois et des outils qui pourraient être plus efficaces et qui devraient être renforcés. Le gouvernement va proposer des changements pendant les prochaines semaines.
Prime Minister, what do you think about critiques of your comments yesterday? There were people saying that they think high immigration rates are shielding Canada's economic picture.
It's a basic fact. It's a basic fact. It's one of several factors, but the underlying point is we're putting in place the foundations for a stronger, more resilient, more independent Canadian economy. It will take time, but you can do the math. You should do the math in terms of declining population growth has an impact.
Why is your government
Monsieur Champagne.
Sur les tarifs, M. Carney disait ce matin, disait soutenir un peu la démarche américaine, ou du moins l'objectif derrière. Est-ce que c'est une bonne idée d'imposer des tarifs maintenant pour des raisons politiques?
Écoutez, je vais laisser mon collègue, vous savez, le ministre Leblanc est présentement à Washington, fait un travail important pour défendre les intérêts du Canada. Tu sais, vous savez, on a toujours dit il y a des enjeux sectoriels, il y a des industries qui sont touchées particulièrement. Il y a une série de discussions qui sont en cours. Je pense que c'est de bon augure, donc je vais laisser le ministre Leblanc continuer à s'exprimer sur cette question-là.
Monsieur Champagne, il nous a dit...
Le ministre Miller nous annonce aujourd'hui qu'il met sur pause la redevance exigée des géants américains et que c'est plutôt le gouvernement canadien qui va compenser pour les revenus de 600 millions de dollars. Dans un contexte de déficit, comment, en tant que ministre des Finances, vous justifiez ça?
Est-ce que c'est un recul?
Écoutez, je pense qu'on est dans une situation très dynamique concernant les négociations qu'on a. On doit prendre des décisions qui sont dans l'intérêt des Canadiens et Canadiennes, évidemment. Le ministre Miller fait un travail, important dans ce domaine-là pour s'assurer qu'on a une approche pragmatique, mais qui défend aussi l'intérêt des Canadiens.
Mais c'est plus de dépenses pour vous qui auraient dû être assumées par les géants du web.
Je pense que dans un contexte comme celui-là, les gens qui nous regardent à la maison savent que la situation mondiale est fluide, c'est complexe. C'est un monde très complexe dans lequel on évolue. Et à chaque moment, on doit réévaluer, on doit ajuster notre position pour être sûr qu'on couvre de façon générale les intérêts des Canadiens.
Mais la dernière fois que vous avez fait ça, la taxe sur le service numérique, vous avez pas...
Listen, I won't go into speculating or commenting on that specifically. I know that Minister LeBlanc is in Washington now. He's having very important discussions with our U.S. partner today.
He just arrived for a caucus.
He's just arrived. Well, I saw him last when he was on TV in the United States. I was myself in Newfoundland yesterday, so I saw him. I think he would have more to say on that. But what we're doing is that engaging is the right thing to do now. We need to engage. They are our largest trading partner. But at the same time, and I think we're doing it very well, is to be firm, is to state our position, fighting for sectors that are affected, and at the same time for workers. And I would say, just let me say one thing on the economy, because I was in Atlantic Canada the last 2 days, but I think the Prime Minister expressed it very well when he said that the Canadian economy is being fundamentally transformed. Budget 2025 was really the blueprint for that. It's generational investment, infrastructure, housing, competitivity, and at the same time in defense. And I think Canadians understand we are operating in probably one of the most complex and volatile global economic environment. And in the numbers that we have seen, and you would have seen the same numbers, there's some encouraging news with respect to business investment, machinery and equipment, investment in intellectual property, government spending down, which is a good thing. And at the same time, you may have seen the OECD numbers this morning, which confirm that in their projection, that Canada will have the second fastest growth in 2026 and 2027. So I just want to reassure Canadians that the Canadian economy is far more resilient than some had expected, and that I'm very, very confident in what I see in terms of the numbers and the Canadian
Donc le gouvernement canadien baisse le 15% qu'on voulait imposer aux grands diffuseurs. Ce matin, ça vient d'être annoncé. Qu'est-ce que le Canada gagne en échange?
Ouais, vous savez, on ne commencera pas à négocier sur la place publique, ça ne serait pas de bon augure.
On fait des concessions sur la place publique.
Mais ce que je vous dirais seulement, c'est que les gens à la maison qui nous regardent, les gens, vous savez, quand je parle aux gens, non, mais ils comprennent dans l'environnement tarifaire comment c'est complexe, comment c'est volatile. J'étais avec mes collègues européens au G7 juste la semaine dernière ou la semaine d'avant. Tout le monde comprend la complexité de ces négociations-là. Ce qu'il faut faire à chaque fois, c'est de prendre un pas de recul, comme je pense qu'on le fait très bien. Prendre un pas de recul, regardez, c'est quoi l'intérêt.
Il y a beaucoup de recul, justement. Il y a beaucoup de recul.
Donnez-moi une seconde. C'est de prendre le temps de regarder l'ensemble de l'œuvre et de dire qu'est-ce qui est dans l'intérêt du Canada. Puis c'est ça qui nous guide à chaque fois dans les positions qu'on prend.
Mais qu'est-ce qu'on va obtenir?
C'est une négociation. Ça fait partie de la négociation.
Do you believe that we're in a recession? Do you believe we're
Well,
in a recession?
what I said is that the Canadian economy is more far more resilient than some had expected. I mean, if you look at the OECD number this morning, they confirmed in their projection that Canada would have the second fastest growth in the G7 for 2026-27. And the Prime Minister was right. Like I said, the economy is being fundamentally restructured. The investment that we've made are helping that restructuring of the economy.
But do you believe we're in a recession?
Well, we see, like I said, the economy is resilient, and that's why I have been watching very carefully also, not only the headline, but the fundamental numbers that you see. More investment in machinery and equipment, more investment by businesses in intellectual property, lower government spending. Those are the kind of things that you want to look when you see these reports.
Donc, pour clarifier, est-ce qu'il y a un lien à faire?
Donc, grosse décision ce matin concernant la culture. Est-ce qu'on peut vous entendre là-dessus?
Oui, d'abord, écoutez, C'est une décision importante pour le secteur, d'abord et avant tout, qui a besoin d'argent. Chaque groupe que je rencontre a besoin d'une injection de cash maintenant. On sait que C11, c'est très important et ça a été un projet de loi très important au niveau de l'équité puis pour que les GAFAM payent leur juste part. Mais en pratique, ce qu'on sait, c'est qu'il y a des litiges qui sont en cours ad vitam aeternam et qu'il y a de l'argent qui est gelé. Et le défi dans le secteur, c'est de s'assurer qu'ils puissent survivre, qu'on puisse raconter nos histoires canadiennes, québécoises. Et on a besoin d'argent. Donc, aujourd'hui, c'est une bonne nouvelle pour le secteur. C'est une nouvelle qui va mettre 600 millions d'argent qui est longuement attendu pour s'assurer qu'il y ait justement cette vitalité dans le secteur.
Je ne comprends pas comment amener de 15 à 5 ça met plus d'argent.
L'annonce sur le CRTC.
Non. Ce qu'on fait, c'est qu'on investit, on va investir 600 millions d'argent dans le secteur, le gouvernement du Canada. Puis c'est immensément important pour un secteur qui bat de l'aile et qui a besoin d'argent immédiatement.
Mais j'ai pas vu votre annonce.
Il faudrait le lire d'abord.
Ce que je comprends, c'est que vous avez décidé de bloquer la décision du CRTC de forcer les géants à payer 15 %. En quoi ça aide le secteur canadien et en quoi c'est pas une capitulation, une autre, devant les États-Unis?
Bien, ce qu'on voit dans le secteur, peu importe ce qu'on pense de la loi C11, c'est que c'est un secteur qui a besoin d'argent. Le CRTC a pris 2 ans à statuer sur une décision longuement attendue sur la répartition des contributions des diffuseurs étrangers. Chaque fois qu'on a une décision, ça bloque en cours. Il y a des centaines de millions de dollars qui sont gelés. Et le secteur, entre-temps, est en train de souffrir. Et donc, aujourd'hui, c'est une annonce importante d'injection. Oui, mais il faudrait peut-être lire l'annonce aussi qui est sortie. Mais il y a 600 millions de dollars qui vont être injectés dans le secteur de la culture.
Donc, c'est vous qui allez payer au lieu des géants?
Oui, c'est nous qui allons payer. Oui. Parce que le secteur en a besoin. Bien, la réalité, c'est qu'il faut regarder ce qui arrive. Et la réalité, c'est qu'on est pris dans le litige, comme j'ai dit à votre collègue, à vitam aeternam. Et l'argent est gelé dans des comptes. On ne peut pas les distribuer, puis il faut que quelqu'un paye. Il faut qu'on distribue l'argent immédiatement au secteur qui en a besoin.
Est-ce que vous dites à ceux qui disent que vous criez encore, vous avez aboli la taxe sur les services numériques, puis là, vous criez encore devant...
Bien, les gens ont droit à leur opinion, et je le respecte, mais la réalité, c'est qu'entre-temps, on a beau se tenir, on a beau gruger des lignes de principe, mais la réalité, c'est que le secteur en tant que tel a besoin d'une injection d'argent. Ça veut dire de l'argent, par exemple, pour CEPAC, c'est de l'argent pour les producteurs canadiens qui attendent, à des litiges sans fin.
In English, can you talk a little bit about what's happening? So, directing the CRTC to review its recent decision around regulation?
So we'll ask the CRTC to review its decision. The reality is the sector is one that's been suffering. It's been suffering for years. We introduced Bill C-11, as you recall, to make sure that people were paying their fair share. Since then, there's been litigations that have frozen funds that were supposed or intended to support the sector and haven't. And today, we're impatient to make sure that gets out. So we don't agree entirely with the CRTC's decision. I will be directing the CRTC to review that decision, and from now until then, we'll be actually assuming that role and making sure that people actually get the money they've been asking for. It's $600 million into the sector that's been suffering for some time, and it'll be extremely important for those producers, whether it's CPAC, where we've seen closures, or other organizations around the country, that every time we sit down with them say, it's important to have a law that supports the ecosystem, but the reality is while we're waiting for that money to come out, hundreds of millions of which is frozen in litigation, the industry is suffering.
This has nothing to do with the U.S. threatening the tariff investigation?
Sorry?
This has nothing to do with the U.S. threatening the tariff investigation?
It's no secret to anyone that's been paying any attention to this that the USTR has identified these issues as a trade issue. It would be disingenuous to suggest that this is the single issue. The reality is we're impatient to make sure that the sector stays vital and stays supported, and that's why we're making that investment of $600 million into the industry that, again, needs it and can't wait for the litigations to be solved before people and jobs get lost. There's a real concern and I don't want to underplay this, around affordability. We know that in countries where these types of decisions have taken place, that there are real impacts on production costs and potential increase in user fees, which are not insignificant for people that have many streaming services. So affordability is an important aspect of this that shouldn't be neglected in the discussion.
Est-ce que le 5 est maintenu, lui, parce que c'était 5 avant que ça passe à 15, et est-ce que la...
C'est à suivre, mais on va voir une réduction. Puis la réalité, c'est que c'est le fédéral... On va émettre une décision à cet effet. Je vais demander au CRTC de réviser sa décision à la baisse. Et la réalité, c'est que, entre-temps, le secteur va être supporté par le gouvernement canadien.
Mais à quel point la négociation actuelle sur la révision de la CIRM, ça entre en jeu dans cette décision-là?
Ce que je dirais, il faut rester justement discipliné à cet égard. Je ne suis pas autour de la table de nésociation comme l'est M. Leblanc. Ça fait partie d'une longue liste qui a été communiquée par le représentant des États-Unis. C'est pas un secret que c'était et ça constitue un irritant. C'est pas l'enjeu numéro un qui nous a motivés de s'assurer que le secteur reçoive de l'argent. 100 millions, c'est une injection importante dans la culture, dans nos histoires canadiennes et québécoises. C'est important pour le secteur qu'on l'ait immédiatement, c'est ça qu'on va faire.
Mais l'abolition de la taxe sur les services numériques n'a pas apaisé Washington pour
So can you say what amendments you are going to make at this point? Like the bill's going to be heading clause by clause any minute now?
I've already indicated that encryption is clarity on encryption is one of the amendments that we will be making. In the next couple of days, you'll see the full set of amendments that we have put forward. We've listened to those who have had some concerns, and we wanted to clarify the language so that the bill is very much in line with our initial expectations. We wanted to make sure that we take the input of those opposition as well as other stakeholders.
Are you considering repealing the gun buyback program? This has been flagged, as did Gail Smith, as fueling Alberta separatist sentiment. You're not going to repeal it?
Sorry, did you say no? I just didn't hear.
No.
You're not going to.
And are you open to splitting lawful access?
So that's the question I just answered. No, we're not. Lawful access, Bill Suite 22 as presented, we're very comfortable with the balance between parts 1 and part 2. It goes together, and we're not prepared to split that bill. You know, what I am concerned about is that initially we thought the Conservative Party will be in full support. It seems like there's divisions on whether they will support the bill or not, and these are stalling tactics that are now coming forward to derail and to delay the bill itself.
Why does that support matter? You have a majority.
Minister, can we ask you about this forced labor bill?
Let me just say it is important that from the outset we worked with all parties, including the opposition, to ensure that the bill gets the broader level of support that is required.
But it seems clear that that's not happening, Minister. It seems clear, like there's opposition not only from the opposition parties in the House, but also from civil society groups all across Canada. So
what I will say is, if you talk to a number of Conservative MPs, they will tell you that they support it. Certainly the leader appears not to be supporting it, so there is certainly division there. What I will say is that if we want to have a serious conversation about crime, Bill C-22, lawful access, is a central piece of the tools that are needed by law enforcement.
Well, the only thing the Ford government done is upload the city's portion of the tripartite agreement.
Sure, but they've also made it clear that they're doing this so that they can expand the airport for jets.
He's made, I only know what I've read in the media. There's been all kinds of statements and things made by him, sort of generally speaking. I've seen no proposal. As far as I know, there is no proposal, and nothing can happen with that airport unless all three parties to the agreement agree to it.
Do you think the federal government has most of the board seats that control that airport on the Port of Toronto? Do you think the federal government should step in and prevent a big expansion for jets?
Look, there's nothing to step in and to prevent right now. I mean, the only thing that's changed from now and 3 months ago is who the third member of that tripartite agreement is. Nothing else has happened. There's been no proposal that I'm aware of. There's been no discussions about any proposed changes to that airport. Billy Bishop is a critical piece of infrastructure in the City of Toronto. It's a critical piece of infrastructure for the people in Northern Ontario, people who need medical treatment in Toronto and from Northern Ontario rely on that facility. So, I mean, there's a lot of discussion about things, and people are asking me regularly, what do you think of the proposed changes? There are no proposed changes. The only change is the governance membership at Billy Bishop Airport.
Who's next to leave for you guys after Evo?
It's not me. When the by-elections are going to be, how long the runway is going to be. So, you know, my preference would be to have a nominations, but if circumstances don't allow for that, then, you know, that's fine too.
Okay.
Yeah. Look, I have confidence in the system regardless of however it plays out. Let me put it that way.
Appreciate it. Thanks for stopping.
Wondering what you make of the Ford government legislation to upload the city park is going to pass soon, and they seem to be pushing ahead with this plan to expand it for jets. What do you make of that?
Well, look, I haven't seen any real plan yet, so that's sort of part one. Everything the province has done to date is 100% in the purview of the province of Ontario. The uploading of the City of Toronto's interest in Billy Bishop Airport is up to them. Designating Billy Bishop as or that area as a special economic zone, 100% in their purview. Anything else will require support from the tripartite agreement. Some of the things I'm going to need to see, an environmental plan. Great Lakes Fishery Commission has said the Great Lakes region contributes $7 billion in GDP to the Canadian economy, helps employ 75,000 people in both Canada and the United States. So we need to make sure the environment is protected. So that's sort of part of the plan I want to see. I want to see the business case. I want to see the economic case for what is being proposed. I want to see a stakeholder engagement plan, a communications plan. There's a whole bunch of things that I need to see before I'm prepared to say whether I support something or not. I'm not going to light my hair on fire because someone posts something on Twitter. I want to see a concrete plan before I say I'm going to support it or not.
So, I mean, the Ford government said they're doing this so that the airport can be expanded, so that it can handle jets, handle millions more passengers a year, but you're saying before any of that can happen, you have to be convinced of the merits of that idea?
Correct.
What do you make of Donald Trump reiterating calls for Canada?
What the Ford government is putting forward, this idea of longer runways and jets?
Look, I would say that for me, for my colleagues, for the federal government, we will always support responsible, reasonable path to collaborating with all the partners in the waterfront. I think that right now we don't have a plan from the province or the Port Authority, and I think that there needs to be transparent communication with all Torontonians about that.
I mean,
Thanks
they've
very
said
much.
what they want to do, and they've said how they're going to do it. What more are you looking for? Billy Bishop Airport.
Well, I think that Nav is a great politician, and I think he'll be a great addition to the campaign, or to the leadership campaign.
On the federal level, sir, what do you make of Carolyn Finlay's victory of the BC Conservative Party?
I don't know enough about what's happening out in BC when it comes to the Conservatives.
Can we ask you about Billy Bishop Airport and the Ford government's expansion plans? Can we ask you about Billy Bishop and the Ford government's expansion plans? Do you think they're on the right path?
They need to consult the community, like the residents of Toronto, but also Northern Ontario that depends on Billy Bishop, other parts of Ontario. It's an important piece of infrastructure for the people of Ontario, and they need to consult the provincial government under Ford. Often pushes things through quickly without consultation. The people of Toronto need to weigh in on that decision.
What do you make about Donald Trump making calls again? What about Donald Trump saying?
See, whatever has to be done in consultation with the Torontonians, stakeholders and delegation. City should be on the table.
The city has been removed from the table.
That's what I'm saying, that city should be on the table. Whatever needs to be done should be in accordance with the tri-party agreement.
Do you think the federal government should get involved? You have the most seats on the Toronto.
I don't see any need for expansion, and I think like Torontonians and stakeholders need to be consulted, and city needs to be on the table. Anything to be done should be done through the tri-party agreement.
So the Ford government took Toronto out of the tri-party agreement.
Yeah, so
was that a mistake?
City should be on the table.
Should we expect further news on what's going to be happening with
Well, we
things like
should
the
be releasing a What We Heard report soon. I'm just waiting for the department to give me the final draft, and stay tuned.
The forestry sector?
We've heard from Premier Eby that the federal government hasn't done enough in terms of softwood lumber. Are you expecting that your government's going to step up and offer more support for softwood lumber?
Well, absolutely, and of course, through Minister Hodgson, as the main spokesman, has always stood up for the forestry sector, and for supporting. It's a challenging time for the forestry, but we'll certainly be there to support moving forward and supporting forestry. It's a prime industry for Canada, and we'll always do so. Certainly facing headwinds.
But do you think the support has been the same for the steel industry? Do you think that there's been the same level of support for softwood lumber?
Every sector has its nuances and how it's addressed. So the challenge is enormous. Always has been, of course, through some of the softwood lumber disagreements with the U.S. So the context is very different, but the commitment is certainly there. Thank you.
From tariffs?
I'll have to get back to you on that one.
I mean, we've heard from Premier Eby saying several times now that he doesn't think that softwood lumber's been left off the list of tariff support from the federal government. Do you agree with that?
Look, I think the Prime Minister and the government is very focused on helping all those sectors, especially those that have had tariffs imposed on them by the U.S. administration, and obviously removing those tariffs is a priority for all those sectors. So, measures have been announced to support all those sectors, but I would say in terms of the specifics as to the relative amount of support, that I'll have to get back to you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
On floor costing without democratic accountability?
I think it's worthy of a discussion, but it comes from a party that nobody wants to transfer over to. So, I'll take it for what that's worth.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Like streaming the review, not capitulating to the U.S. Is that another concession to the U.S. and
It is another step to reinforce affordability for Canadians. This is not the time to raise the cost for Canadians. When the CRTC takes decisions, as they did last summer, with respect to telecom and telecom sharing on broadband, which helped to lower costs for Canadians, we're very much in support, but this is not the time to make Canadians pay another $50 a year.
Monsieur Miller, pourquoi vous faites un cadeau comme ça?
How is this not
Pourquoi est-ce que Jeff Bezos a
US
besoin de l'argent du fédéral comme vous faites là?
Je suis en désaccord avec la prémisse. Honnêtement, c'est 100 millions de dollars à l'industrie de la culture. C'est rien à cracher dessus. C'est un investissement qui s'attend depuis fort longtemps. On a des millions de dollars, des centaines de millions de dollars qui sont gelés dans des litiges à plus en finir. L'industrie crie pour une subvention, un appui du fédéral, puis on est là pour les appuyer. Il y a des enjeux qui sont importants.
Qui vont payer pour
les
enjeux, qui vont imposer la facture?
Vous faites l'argument avec moi?
Une question?
Il y a des enjeux qui sont significatifs en ce qui a trait à l'abordabilité, justement par les gens qui payent pour les plateformes, c'est-à-dire les Canadiens, les consommateurs. Donc, c'est un enjeu qui est important. Il reste que peu importe si on aime C11, si on n'aime pas C11, moi, ma préférence personnelle et celle du gouvernement, c'est de s'assurer que les gens payent leur juste part, mais la réalité, c'est qu'entre-temps, il y a des litiges à plus en finir. Il faut qu'on sorte de l'argent pour l'industrie.
How is this not a concession to the U.S.? How does this not?
That's one person yelling at a time. Isn't that and please not that high. What's that?
We had stopped.
Yeah, now you stop. Okay, so who's going to yell at me?
How is this not a concession? How is this not a concession to the U.S.?
Look, it's not a surprise that the Trade Commissioner in the U.S. had put a number of items on the list, including this one, as potential irritants. The reality at the end of the day is we have an industry that has been suffering, whether or not we're in a trade war and they need to get money out.
They're giving less money than this regulation would have delivered to the industry.
Absolutely not. What I've said is
$2 billion this year.
So do you want to argue this with me, or do you want to hear my answer?
I do want to argue because I'm confused.
Okay, well, maybe you should actually get the facts, because the facts are quite important. What I've said is I'm going to ask the CRTC to revise its model. This isn't an absolute removal of any responsibility of people to contribute to the sector. Far from that. We still expect people to contribute to the sector, but we have to make sure that it's reasonable. This is actually an injection that is superior than anything the industry would have seen under these regulations, particularly given the fact that they are in constant litigation. So this is an acknowledgement of the reality, and it's a significant investment into the cultural industry that is suffering.
Why do you think the CRTC got it wrong? Why do you think the CRTC got it wrong?
I'm not going to get into those details with you. We're currently reviewing what the potential directive to the CRTC would be. And it's not something that I'm going to speak to publicly until we finalize that thought. Again, there's a lot of yelling. Sorry.
Do you want it
Laisse-moi finir ma pensée.
Oui, excuse-moi.
Look, there's a lot more to come. The immediate urgency of the industry that is suffering, that needs an injection of funds, is something that we're squarely focused on. There is a concern about what passing on those costs and the production costs that would increase as a result of the implementation of the CRTC decision would imply for Canadians potentially $40 per platform per year, per household that subscribes sometimes to many platforms, so that adds up. But there are a number of considerations that are in flux.
Je veux juste continuer là-dessus. Vous dites que vous ne voulez pas aller dans le détail de la décision du CRTC, mais si vous leur demandez de revoir la décision, c'est quelque chose qui vous dérange.
Oui.
Est-ce que c'est le fait que le pourcentage, par exemple, avait triplé? Est-ce que c'est
Notamment
vous insistez beaucoup? OK, ça, c'est une des choses
Oui.
qui vous dérange.
Je pense qu'on peut ajuster les normes aux normes qui sont dans l'existence, généralement, grosso modo, au niveau mondial. Je pense qu'il y a une question d'être raisonnable dans le contexte avec toutes les implications que ça peut avoir sur les consommateurs, sur les coûts de production, sur les investissements au Canada. Là, pour l'instant, l'injection de 600 millions de dollars, c'est quelque chose de très significatif, au-delà potentiellement de ce qu'on aurait pu investir, surtout dans les contextes.
Est-ce que vous, je m'excuse, je vous coupe parce que je ne veux pas perdre ma main. Sur le pourcentage, est-ce que vous tenez encore à ce qu'il y ait un certain pourcentage ou ça pourrait tomber à zéro? Ou est-ce que l'idée, c'est plus de revenir plus aux 5 que vous aviez au départ?
C'est une bonne question. On s'attend à ce que tout le monde paye une juste part de ce qu'il a réduit.
Est-ce que ça pourrait être moins que 5
Avant d'émettre une directive, je ne vais pas le négocier en public, honnêtement.
Donc, il y aura un pourcentage, mais on ne sait pas combien.
L'industrie applaudit quand même. L'industrie applaudit. Qu'est-ce que vous leur dites aujourd'hui, alors que l'industrie applaudit le CRTC il y a 2 semaines?
C'est un succès, puis une réussite, c'est une victoire pour la culture canadienne, québécoise. C'est une injection d'argent, d'appui, qui revendique depuis fort longtemps.
Le 15 de Marie, là. L'industrie est en faveur de tripler le financement du CanCon par les plateformes américaines. Là, vous voulez revenir sur cette décision-là. L'industrie applaudit. Qu'est-ce que vous leur dites aujourd'hui?
L'industrie veut ce que je veux, c'est que les gens payent leur juste part, mais en même temps, il y a une doléance très importante en ce qui a trait aux fonds qui sont distribués à l'industrie en tant que telle, puis ils ne les reçoivent pas justement parce que il y a des gens qui ont porté ça en litige. Il y a des centaines de millions d'argent qui sont gelés. Alors là, on est impatient d'agir. On était déjà impatient d'avoir une décision du CRTC. Et évidemment, entre-temps, on peut se débattre des principes, mais la réalité, c'est que l'industrie souffre, puis il faut qu'on injecte de l'argent.
Donc, ils ont gagné.
I can't get into those details.
Not when it was launched?
It's been launched for some time. The reality is that we have to respect due process. I don't want to get into a long discussion about he said, she said. There are allegations. They are serious enough to warrant an audit. We have to all be responsible about the public's money. And the reality is people have to be held to account. But part of holding people to account is giving people the benefit of the doubt, and that includes making sure that due process is respected. So I'm not going to speculate on the content of the allegations. I think it's very important to respect people's entitlement to have that due process as the audit is ongoing, but I will confirm that it was ordered by my department.
Who are you working with on reforms? There's a 5-year review that has to be done into the Act. What changes are you looking to make?
Well, there will be a change in the Commission itself, and I won't speculate as to what the potential person that will be appointed will look into. I think it's quite clear in the Act it happens every 5 years, and this is the 5-year period coming up to term.
The people that I've spoken to, community members who are language speakers, Conservative MP Billy Moore, said that ultimately the buck stops with your department, with the federal government, because that's who this office is accountable to. Are there any changes that you're going to make to the financial reporting of this office?
Well, we'll see what the audit reveals. I would say that as part of the review of the Act, perhaps the person in charge will review how the reporting takes place. I think it's important to respect the nature of the Commission itself, why it was set up, to make sure that it is Indigenous people speaking about and for Indigenous people. And so the level of my scrutiny into it has to reflect that sensitivity and that realization that I'm part of a series of historical governments that have taken those languages from Indigenous people. So having me be the final arbiter, I'm sure the member of the Conservative Party would appreciate the fact and the position that I'm in. We do have to respect the reality that the Commission is and has a level of independence that we have to respect. Again, but everyone expects it to be responsible, and it's why we did indeed launch the audit.
When you just say, Minister Miller, whether that audit was actually called for and launched before your department received media requests about it?
A series of facts, and the audit was formally launched by my department as I was the minister, but it came as a result of a cumulative time frame that preceded me.
When did you first get complaints to your office from whistleblowers, as your department officials called?
I can't speak to that. But
When
before
did you respond to those people?
I can't speak to what happened before me, but there is a process that's being observed, and me staying at least at a distance from it, because I do have to stay objective, is important.
Your officials at the not the Canadian Heritage Committee, at Public Accounts, said that they wouldn't have done this audit unless those people had come forward. What is the oversight like of this body that's getting millions of dollars in federal funding to do this work that communities expect them to do? Like if
I mean, the Commission, you can review the Act as well as I can. The Commission has a number of duties under it, but this level of intense audit doesn't come without some process of complaint, obviously.
Why did your online streaming announcement come today, the day after LeBlanc was in Washington? Is that a coincidence at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think the urgency of the situation demanded it, and I'm not going to speak to the trade negotiations that are ongoing. You have to talk to Mr. LeBlanc, who will probably give you the exact same answer.
Will you repeal online streaming?
New money, or is it? Can you shed some light on the forced labor question we're getting out of the White House and the USTR about forced labor?
Yeah.
And what the government makes of this and
we agree, absolutely. And there's been a lot of work in many of my colleagues' files on forced labor and the labor chain. Obviously, the Labor Department has a role in this, and we are a member of the ILO, which also has a number of different actions and statements around the horrific nature of forced labor. We'll be doing more together, actually, as departments to make sure that we not only understand the supply chain and forced labor issues, but also any occurrences in our own domestic chain.
Is this a shock in the night that forced labor was going to come up, or were there sort of
No, this is something that we have been working on with the United States for a very long time. Obviously, we have really integrated supply chains, so the reality is that this is going to take all nations working together, and we have an opportunity with the United States. And in fact, because of that, I think we're in good standing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Contractor? Why did your government secretly extend contracts with Palantir and give them tens of millions more than you publicly disclosed?
There are systems in place in our department for procuring goods and services. The system was followed. Palantir Canada is a subsidiary of a multinational corporation. The department proceeded with a proper procurement, and it's moved forward. It's a legitimate procurement, and it stands.
Why is your government still using Gotham
now that you're in negotiations to buy the Global Eye, what modifications need to happen for NORAD use, please?
That's a complicated technical question. It's one that we're looking at. We're in discussions with Saab now to see how Canada can enter into this important field of producing a military aircraft. It's the first time in decades. So we're now continuing our discussions with Saab, their engineering teams, our needs, the question of interoperability on a NORAD basis. All this is being worked through, and this is exactly what was announced last Wednesday.
And this is basically about the data links, because obviously it has to be able to talk.
There are data links. Interoperability extends beyond data links. So this is something that we're working our way through, because of course it has to be interoperable with our NORAD system.
Why is the military using Gotham software? It's very controversial. European allies have rejected it. Why are we using it while at the same time talking about data sovereignty?
Look, I have confidence in the folks who procure and operate these systems. I have very, very deep confidence in our security apparatus in this country, having reviewed it for 8 years and conducted 15 foundational reviews. That's something that we're looking at. We'll have more to say.
Well, and what are we using it for?
There was a final question, sir. I think the press had put out a story that we were going to buy 30 F-35s and 60 Gripens.
I don't comment on speculation. That's speculation. The whole question of the F-35 remains under review. We're working our way forward. We're looking at the needs of the Air Force. We're looking at our budget. We're looking at our 3.5% target. And we're moving forward. And so these decisions will be made and announced in due course. But we're going to get this right, just as we're going to get the submarine procurement right. That was a very quick down select. It's a process that's occurred within 6 to 8 months. It normally takes 3 to 5 years. So we're making sure that we cross the T's, dot the I's, and make sure that we get what we need for the country, and particularly the needs of the Air Force.
Can you just
Thank you very
clarify
much.
what we're using the Gotham software for?
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
What do you make of it?
I have signed off on the transportation permits. I think this is a positive step forward. There's still more work to be done, but it's a step forward.
What makes this proposal better than the proposal to send them to China a year ago?
It's the standards in the institutions that I'm satisfied that the board is.
Is your government prepared to hand over the $5 million?
I'm concerned with permits. Thank you.
When's this made report going to be
We're trying to get, we want to get in 3 meetings to discuss the report before the end of the year, and we'd like to tape the report and make it public before the sitting ends in the summer.
Okay, how likely is that to happen?
I'm really pushing for it. So it's a busy time of year with people on a lot of committees, but I think it's really important we come up with something before summer starts.
Okay, thanks a
Do
lot.
you have meetings set already for the consideration of the report?
Our first meeting will be next week, and that's when the report comes out. It's all in camera, so we can't really discuss where we're going with it. But
So you said the report will come out next week?
well, we start to discuss it behind closed doors in camera, and then when we've decided on our recommendations, then it's going to come out. We're going to try to make that before the end of the sitting session.
Thank you so much.